At Christmas time, you certainly see a lot of lights. I love driving down certain streets and people have strings of lights decorating their houses. Sometimes it's candles in the windows. We have lights on our Christmas trees. There are lights in stores. There are lights here this evening, and one of the things that people most like about the Christmas Eve service is the passing of the light. And so light is very important. And have you ever asked the question, why are there so many lights at Christmas? Why is light associated with Christmas? The first followers of Jesus, as they tried to get a handle on and describe what God had done in the incarnation and the birth, the life, the death, and the resurrection of Jesus, they struggled to find the words and the descriptions and the explanations. And one of the things they grabbed onto and used were metaphors. And the metaphor of light was one that was very, very powerful, that they found very, very helpful in terms of trying to describe what God had done in Jesus Christ. Of the four Gospels, there are three of them or two of them really, Matthew and Luke, that tell the story that we get our Christmas story from. Mark really doesn't mention anything, and Luke really takes it John takes it from a very different direction. And John, the first chapter of John probably is one of the best texts that show how the early followers of Jesus used light as a metaphor. In John 1:1-5, we find this. In the beginning was the one who is called the Word. The Word was with God and was truly God. From the very beginning, the Word was with God. And with this Word, God created all things. Nothing was made without the Word. Everything that was created received its life from him, and his life gave light to everyone. The light keeps shining in the dark, and the darkness has never put it out. And it's not only in John that we find this metaphor of light. In some of the letters of Paul we do as well, particularly the passage in 2 Corinthians 4, 5, and 6. We find this. Remember, our message is not about ourselves. We're proclaiming Jesus Christ, the Master. All we are is messengers, errand runners from Jesus for you. It started when God said, "Light up the darkness," and our lives filled up with light as we saw and understand God in the face of Christ, all bright and beautiful. And there are other passages in the Scriptures where the authors of the different books of the Bible grabbed onto this metaphor of light. And the light is something that we didn't create. It's something that we never could have found on our own. It's only something that has been revealed. It's a gift from beginning to end, and our job is to receive it gladly and let it do its work in ourselves. And so we become then like reflectors of light. Like the sun reflects its sunlight on the moon, so that is, in a way, followers of Jesus, we are to be reflectors of Christ's light. Now, clearly, our light the reflection isn't anything close to what Jesus is, just like the moon's reflection is nothing compared to what the sunlight is like. But we all know that if we go out on a dark, cloudless night, with a full moon, the moon provides a lot of light. And so that's what then followers of Jesus are called to be, the reflectors of light. When I think of light, I think of the story of Kate Walker. Kate Walker was a woman born in Germany in 1848, and she immigrated to the U.S. in the early 1870s. She worked at a boarding house in New York City, and there she met retired sea captain John Walker, who was the keeper of the lighthouse at Sandy Hook. And so they fell in love, and they got married, and Kate then moved to the lighthouse where John was assigned as a lighthouse keeper. She loved it there. It was on the coast. She had a little garden. And then that happened in the early 1880s. And then in 1883, he was assigned to Robbins Reef Lighthouse, which is about 2.5 miles southwest of the Statue of Liberty, and it's completely surrounded by water. And she hated that. She didn't like that. At first, she didn't unpack her bags, but over time, she really began to like it, and she was the assistant lighthouse keeper at Robbins Reef. One night in the 1886, John caught a cold, and over time it developed into pneumonia, and finally it got to the point where he had to go to the hospital, and there was no one else to keep the light. Kate really wanted to go to the hospital with him, and he really persuaded her, said, "Kate, there's no one else here." And so his last words were to her, "Kate, mind the light." And so reluctantly, she stayed. Several days later, she saw a boat rowing out to the lighthouse, and she had the premonition that it was bad news, and indeed it was. She found out that her husband had died. And so Kate decided, after attending the funeral, she attended the funeral, and then she decided to stay at the lighthouse, and she actually was the lighthouse keeper for another 30 years. After his funeral, Kate said, "Every morning when the sun comes up, I stand at the porthole and look towards his grave. Sometimes the hills are brown, sometimes they are green, sometimes they are white with snow, but always they bring a message from him, something I heard him say more often than anything else. Just 3 words, mind the light." As author James Moore, the one from whom I learned about this story, writes, "This could really be a Christmas parable for us. When we look at Bethlehem and beyond Bethlehem to Jesus' life, his death, his resurrection, come 3 powerful words from God to us, I think. It's mind the light. Keep the light of Christ aglow in this world. Keep bright and visible what he believed in and died for. Keep the light of Christ." And so I hope you remember as you go out this evening and you see Christmas lights, and when you drive around, look at the lights on your trees or wherever they are at Christmas time, you're reminded of the reason that there are so many lights associated with Christmas. And I hope that you will hear the words from God saying to you, mind the light of Christ. And so this evening, when we do the passing of the light, I would suggest as you pass the light from candle to candle, you can whisper to the person next to you, if you're so motivated, just to whisper, mind the light of Christ. Mind the light of Christ. Amen.